Hello, welcome to Baron's Game Room. I'm Aaron as always, and I'm really not online all that much. What little I am online, I've kind of got my social medias pretty strongly curated to be mostly about board games and maybe a couple of hobbies I have, but somehow I completely missed until like last weekend or so that I guess there's sort of a trend thing for board games right now called Solo September. So since this is, I think, the last Monday of September, I guess I could jump in on that real quick with talking about some solo games that I have played and really enjoy. I'm not much of a solo player, but I've kind of gotten into a handful, and sure, I can show off to you guys. Might as well at least attempt to be on topic. Now, like I said, for a long time, I really wasn't a solo game type of person. I really don't like the idea of like setting up a whole table of games to play by myself. For me, board games are a very social hobby for me. It's a very social experience, but that means I definitely understand how difficult it can be to get friends over to play board games. It's the unfortunate reality of any sort of in-person stuff like that, so I definitely know and understand where the appeal of solo board gaming can come from. The ones I want to talk about today are all pretty similar to some extent, which is why I'll probably talk about just several of them in one video instead of doing just one. And I know I own some like board games that have solo modes, but I've just never played them. So I really don't want to, talk about those because I really can't have an opinion on them. So I'm just talking about the ones I do know, because the ones I do play, because even though I said I don't really play a lot of these solo modes of stuff, I have recently, in the past year or so, really gotten into these smaller puzzle solo things. That's what most of these all have in common, is they're all basically kind of puzzle games that you're sort of presented with a setup and you need to solve the situation. I love those. Those are a lot of fun to me. I love little things to, keep my brain going and all that. Those are really the solo games I've personally gotten into. As far as something more traditional to a board game, I don't really have much experience with those ones. I was kind of curious in getting that Gloomhaven Bugs and Buttons, but I haven't got it yet, so I can't talk about it. Maybe I'll get that at some point and can do another video later on it. But puzzles are really my thing, which is kind of funny because personally I hate jigsaw puzzles. Those are awful. But puzzles otherwise, love them. And yeah, let's quit just talking about them and show them. Now, of course, first, I have to be a good businessman and actually talk about some solo games that I've actually made myself. Yes, if somehow you haven't found this out before, if you're just now coming to the Baron's Game Room with us, we don't just do videos about board games. We actually design and publish our own board games. For example, Gemblems here. Gemblems is a little handheld puzzle game that I created. I was inspired by a game we own called Dimension. And this game I don't really know the name of. A friend of mine showed me this card game, like a deck of cards that like their aunt had showed them, where you flip out a few cards, and depending on what you flipped out, stuff either gets saved or goes to the back, and you're trying to like save as much of the deck as possible. Honestly, it's not really a game. It's one of those things where you just sort of shuffle it up, and then you're slowly revealing the outcome of it. But it got my attention enough to go, hey, I really love this handheld nature of it. You weren't playing it on a table or anything. You just literally held it in your hand and was like, save, move. And I was like, oh, that's really cool. I like that idea. And started looking into stuff from there. From there, I became aware of a game called Palm Island. Spoiler alert for later in the video, I might be talking about Palm Island. Hey, I want to make a game that is all played in your hand. I've done a full video of this on the page. You can go find it there. But yeah, Gemblems is the game I ended up coming up with. A friend of mine was telling me about, was talking to me. He gave me the idea from, again, I was talking about what I was thinking of, my inspirations, my ideas, and he was like, hey, that one game that you were telling me about a week ago called Dimension, what if you did something like that in your hand? If you guys don't know Dimension, you're basically trying to stack these balls into a pile, but you have to follow certain rules, like green can't touch blue and stuff like that. And that's sort of what we have going on here, is basically you end up drawing out a handful of cards, and each card has rules on it as well as jewels in the corner, and you're trying to reorganize your hand, flip stuff around, or maybe even flip the cards over to line the jewels up in the corner in a way that follows all the rules on the cards. Things like, again, only having one yellow. Well, I have two, so I gotta change this. There we go. Yada yada. So I really have just, honestly, I know this is totally just like a game you could play on your phone, but that's kind of what I liked about it, even though it felt like just a phone game, was I basically used this as a way to get off of my phone. I love taking this around with me and playing it at like when I'm waiting in the waiting room at like doctor's visits, dentist office, stuff like that. So I'm not just on my phone scrolling or playing little puzzle games on my phone instead. You know, try and get that screen time down. And another one that we've actually published is our Mini Meeple Melee series. Now this is not a solo series or anything. This is a multiplayer game, but in the Adventures expansion, there are rules for playing solo games, with solo experiences in there. Technically, you can play a solo game with just the base 10 and all that, but the rules for solo are included with Adventures, but that's okay. We are currently working on sort of a master rulebook that'll do away with the whole separate rulebooks in each thing, but also, if you don't want to buy Adventures and you just want to get the main game and you want to play solo stuff, you just go to our website where we have all the PDFs available for all our rules. So that'll give you the solo rules right there. So technically, the Adventures is where we have the solo rules, but it's available online to play it with other stuff. Enough shilling. Let's get to the games I've actually purchased that are solo games that I like playing. So these are the 5 solo games that I personally have. 2 Logic Quest games themed around Catan and Ticket to Ride. A little puzzle game called Canoodle, the pocket version of Dimension, which I totally actually did not know existed when I was making my Gem Loan game. They are very different still, but yeah, when I was like, I want a pocket version of it, I didn't realize I could literally get one. And the aforementioned Palm Island. I can't quite remember which was first on these. I know it definitely wasn't this one. One of these 2 was first, and then this came later, and those 2 came last. Most of these are, like I said, just sort of puzzle games, so we'll kind of go over them quickly, and we'll see if I have time to maybe get to this one at the end. I may end up giving this one its own video because it is quite a bit more of a game than these ones are. Canoodle is just this little game where you open up the little case, and there are simply these little sort of Tetris-ish pieces, but they're just formed of all these little connected ball shapes, and they all perfectly fit into this case. They can fit in many different ways, and all you do with the game is simply open up your little puzzle book here, essentially, 2 different puzzles, and select one of them. Oh, sorry, you know, dog as usual. Sorry about that, the mailman came and my dogs lost their mind, as per usual. Anyway, so essentially, you can look through here and there's a bunch of varying levels of puzzles here, and it will show you where to put some of the pieces. And then it shows you a little blank space. So basically you put everything in, it shows you, and then you fill in the blank place with the remaining pieces. That's it, super simple. And I will say, it technically starts at level 1, which is literally putting in all but one of the pieces. That's not a puzzle, even for a baby, I feel like almost. It would take all of, 5 seconds to go. Let me get this one out. For someone to go, like, you kind of just accidentally it's in. So it's kind of funny they even wasted a page on those. But it legit goes up from there. Then it's 2 pieces, which still isn't much. If you're an adult, you're really not going to be playing it until you're pretty much going to jump to at least level 3 or 4 before even attempting to start the game. But there's one more cool thing about it too, is other than all these ones where you're filling up the inside, there's also pyramid ones you can do. So on the underside of this case here, there's this little square and all that. The pieces actually can stack up into a little pyramid shape, which is pretty neat. And it's got once that, and here's it, where it's the same thing. They show you where to put a bunch of them, and then you see sort of these white circles are like the blank spots you'll need to fill in with the remaining pieces. It's pretty cool. Some of these are pretty challenging. Some of these are downright hard. Good little thing you can easily carry in your pocket, and oh no! I pulled it too hard. This is not a common thing. Don't worry, guys. If you decide to get it, it's not like it just regularly explodes out like this. Oh no, why'd you do this right in the middle of the video? I might have to edit this out. Ah, we're good. Okay. Canoodle. There's a bunch of different versions of it. I like this. They're pretty cool little pocket thing. This is Pocket Dimension. Here, let me kind of pull the rulebook up so that's the name. Yeah, Pocket Dimension. There we go. Woo! This is a pretty neat one. Again, I talked about Dimension a second ago. Dimension is a game where you're trying to stack balls into a little pyramid, little pile, and there are rules about what's allowed to touch. This is essentially the same thing,
but instead of multiple players racing against each other in a timer to try and stack their balls up in a way that, you know, follows all the rules, this is just a solo experience where you have this tray here full of these cool little stones, and they all have this nifty little design on the bottom of them here. This basically slots into these little divots on the front screen of the thing, so I can kind of slide. I can slide this in. Hey, sort of. Well, there we go. And what's in there? Yeah, you have to turn it kind of far for them to fall out. Like, they don't just slide out. And that's the idea, is they sort of slide in and they sort of stay in place. And then as you put more in, they even kind of stack on top of each other because of that weird little design. So I can put these all down. And then there, those little 3 divots there basically slot right into the things. Yeah, and you stack them up in a way that follows all the rules on these little puzzles here. Each card, there's several cards in this whole thing. You know, several cards, they're all double-sided. If there are any things written right here, those are like universal rules that apply to every puzzle below it. So this card technically has, every card has 5 puzzles on it. Again, if there's anything here, those are universal rules you have to follow. And then the ones next to each square are unique rules to that puzzle. So, for example, on this page you happen to be looking at, what we're seeing is red and grays need to be touching. That's the heart. And I have to use 3 reds in every puzzle. But then going down, I can see that this top one here, my reds are not allowed to touch. My reds and grays must be on the same level. There's basically 3 levels of the pyramid. And I must use the same amount of grays and reds. So I have to use 3 grays. And this last one over here means I won't use a full 10 to solve it. I'll only use 7 to solve this puzzle. And there you go. Once you stack them all up, you can check if you want. In the back of the rule book, there's a little thing that shows you where, you know, the answers to the puzzles you're working on. So I can find, you know, 8A here and then go to whichever I'm looking at. And that's the whole game. It's increasing more difficult, these being the easiest, the reds being the hardest. I'm a little ways through it. I'm really not as far through as you think I would be for having as long as I have, but yeah. I really like this one. It's a lot of fun. It's another pretty small one that's easy to carry around in pocket and all that. And because of those little divots on the bottom, you can kind of almost hold this in front of you like so, and will grab and lock on and not be falling all out. It's not the most portable friendly, but it's pretty portable friendly. You kind of need to be at a table for it, but not necessarily. Now we'll go on to these 2. These are my most recent 2 purchases for my solo games and all that. I don't quite remember where I was turned on to these, but I'm a big fan of both these board games normally, so I was like, yeah, let's check those out. Those seem really cool. We'll go over, I guess, Ticket to Ride one, because it's the one that's in my hand right now. Basically, yeah, I'm pull out this little tray here. Woohoo! And each card shows you 2 things. It shows you a setup of where you need to place some of the pieces. So for this one, I need to place a green, the gold like front locomotion, and a blue in this exact spot on the board. And then this shows you where you need to get all the things. So through all my movements, I need to get the gold and then the blue up here and the green one down there. And these on the sides are the numbers of how many turns it takes you to do so. So if it takes me 7 movements to do it, that's the worst I could do, besides just failing, I guess. 6 is mid and 5 is best. Basically, the gold trains, they are the ones actually moving stuff around. All your little guys like these aren't doing anything. They're just, they don't have their own engines, so they're just around. But your gold main conductor trains are able to push anything in front of them. They're allowed, if they want, to pull anything behind them in a line. So if there were multiple ones back here, I could take all 3 with me, or 4, or whatever. And yeah, you basically make movements like so. And then maybe I can, oh, no. Now, it can be a little fiddly to get everything to follow kind of the path you want. Oh, there we go, that's what I want to do. Woo! and stuff like this, and so yada yada. I've already kind of messed this up and tried to solve them, but you get the idea of what's happening here. There's a little slot right here for the card. You can place it in so you see what you're working on. But yeah, you're just using this to push and pull things around. Sometimes there might be these blockades in the way. If one of these is set into the thing, let's say, you know, the game said to set this maybe right here, then that would be a block path I actually can't go through because that brown one's in the way. As I said, this game can be a little fiddly to get the things to go where you want and all that. It's not the easiest to mess around with, but I think it's a really good puzzler. You can keep track of how many turns it takes you with this little turner dial here. You know, click 1, then make another move, click 2, click 3. It just helps you keep track of how many moves you've made so you don't forget in the middle of trying to plan it all out. But I really like this one a lot. Again, it's just a decent little puzzler. At the very end, to make sure you got it right, you can flip it over and it'll give you the answer here on exactly how you can do it in the minimum amount of turns of 5. Yeah, that's the thing. Push stuff around, drag stuff around, and try and get it where it needs to go. Stores away. These are a little bigger, certainly a good bit bigger than these ones, so they're not quite as pocket friendly, and you do pretty much need to have a table for these ones. I guess I could sort of sit here and hold it as I play, but it's certainly a little more unruly than these guys or whatever. Certainly not quite as travel friendly, but cool little components, great little display and all that, fun little puzzles. I like it a lot. Catan is a similar situation. It's got this cool hex, really maintain the hex theming of the main game and all that. You essentially have this tray full of a bunch of these tiles and stuff in here, and then you have these little cards. This is pretty similar in that you are, let me dig one out. Each of these cards shows you where you are supposed to place certain pieces at the start of the thing. So if I was doing this one, I would need to end up placing this right here, and then the other river, there it is, down like this, right? No, whoops, there. And then it's also showing some of these red ones. These red ones are bandits. I'll need to put a few of them out in a few places. I'm not going to set all this up. And then you'll also see there are some little spots we see like ore and wood and wheat and brick. And I would find those little single tiles in here. Hey, where'd you go? There they are. And place them where they need to be on the board. And then after you set up everything that it shows here, by the way, like the white spaces you kind of see, those relate to these spaces that have sort of an extra little hexagon in them, just to help you map out where stuff goes be easier and all that. Which means I'm actually doing something. No, that's right, yeah. Anyway, and then after that, you look at all the pieces over here. They'll give you various of these orange-shaped pieces that you need to pull out. And you need to use all of these orange pieces to connect all of the what do you call them, resource pieces on the map already. So if I were to fully do this one out, I would need to find a way to connect like this ore down here to this log over here, and so on and such. Hey, look, I have to grab out the log one. And I would need to place them in a way that I try and connect them all together. The rules of it are you're not ever allowed to have a different resource touching a different resource outside of like the pieces themselves. So I couldn't put this like this for any reason. It literally won't fit, but if it could fit. I literally couldn't put this like this because this would have the logs and the sheep touching these logs. I can't do that. So I have to place them in a way where only the logs touch. And yeah, you're trying to place all of these ones out. This one's actually got quite a few. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I have all 7 of these out onto the board in a way that connects all of the resource ones while avoiding all of the bandits. You have to avoid the bandits, or you have to touch them with night pieces. Some pieces, like it says an ore, some clay here, brick or whatever, and it has a little green night tile. The knights are allowed to touch the bandits. In fact, they have to be touching the bandits. So there's only one way in which they'll all fit in to touch all these. As far as I know, only one way. And like with Ticket to Ride, once you think you've solved it, You can simply flip it over and it'll show you exactly where all the pieces need to go to complete the puzzle. There's also kind of a fun story happening with these ones. Over here in the corner of these cards, there's little setups for like what you're doing at each one. Like this one says, the mines will soon be exhausted. The camp plans to use their newfound wealth to build a new city if you can make sure that trade keeps flowing. And every card has one of those, so as you're playing through the game, you're kind of reading a story of how the island of Catan is developing. It's neat, it's cool, it's very just fitting the puzzle pieces in the right spot. It can be pretty difficult, and I'm only, I think, a third of the way or so through the stuff. But I like the theming of it, I like the tiles. It can be a little fiddlesome to dig through all of these pieces to find the ones you're looking for each time. That is a little annoying, I will say that. But as a whole, another great success for me. I do enjoy solving these puzzles.
And with that, I think I'll leave Palm Island for a later video. I think I might do it in a month that I'm wanting to do that's going to be all focused on outdoor themed games. So I think it's a good fit for that one. Or maybe I'll do it for like a summertime video. And if not, worst case scenario, that means I'll have a solo game to go over next September if I don't end up buying more solo games in the meantime. But all that being said, just know that I like Palm Island. I recommend you should buy it. Even if you don't quite hear about it, go watch someone else's video, right? I'm not the only guy that does videos. I know you guys aren't the only watching me. I think I'm clearly not a solo gamer as much as I've started to really enjoy a lot of these puzzles. As far as solo gaming goes, my only real experience with it is my own one that I've made. And even that one, I like it. I do think I made a good little solo game. But it's not something that I love doing. I have another solo game I've been working on. Actually, it's probably the solo game that I like the most, but it's not finishing out yet, so I'm not doing a video on it or anything. So I do have some enjoyment with solo games, but overall, it's not really my thing. I'm really much more of a puzzle person. And hey, if you are wondering whether you should buy any of these today, I really recommend them. Canoodle's pretty cheap. And it's pretty accessible. I know you can find it pretty easily at Walmart and all that. You go to any Barnes & Noble, and you'll find just so many Canoodles or versions or similar things to it. And I believe that's also where I found the Pocket Dimension game and all that. As far as my favorites here, I love Palm Island a lot, but I probably play Dimension the most. Canoodle, I had a ton of fun with it first, but it is sort of the same gimmick over and over again. And I think I've just done pretty much all the puzzles in there. I may have skipped some, but I'm pretty sure I've done everything level 3 and up in Canoodle, so I probably just need to buy me a new set to play. As far as Dimension, I'm still working my way through those puzzles, so I'm still really enjoying that one. I really do like the Logic Quest games, the Ticket to Ride and the Catan. I love those a lot. They're really great quality. They're really cool, like thematically themed with them and all that, but they are kind of big, so they're a little hard to carry around. I love the portability side of like Canoodle and Dimension and all that. So yeah, I think personally my overall recommendation for this is going to be Dimension if you like those sort of puzzly games and all that. But if you want some cool themes or whatever and don't mind some of the fiddly nature of the pieces, the Logic Quest ones are awesome. Clearly, I think it's just, these are band approved, guys. I don't have any that I disapprove. Again, I think the lowest one for me might be Canoodle in that it is the most samey over and over again. Oh, and a knock on Canoodle is there's not answers. I think it's because the whole book is just full of puzzles, but there's no answers anywhere. So if you like are struggling to solve a puzzle and you want to be like, well, fine, just show me how to solve it so I can put this away. You kind of got to go. You kind of got to go to Google and look up the answers. The answers are there on Google, but there's nothing in the book. All these other ones have the answers on them. So if you get to a point where you just give up on it, or you need to just put stuff away, you can see, oh, that's how I do it. I guess lastly, I should say, if you are interested in any of these games, most of them are pretty accessible, except for Palm Island can be kind of hard to find. And honestly, sorry. The Logic Quest games, the Catan and Ticket to Ride, those are super hard to find. Sorry, guys. As far as my games are concerned, sorry, my dog's as usual, it's in this. These are both available on our website, SpareHandsGames.com. Grab you some. Man, this video went longer than I thought. See you next time, guys. Puzzle solo games are Baron approved, I guess. Regular solo games, TBD.